Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Dude here, and today I'm back with a brand new video. Now, it's going to be kind of a new series on my channel, basically called Is It Worth It? And I'm going to be discussing many of the cars in the legendary dealership, in particular the more expensive and rare ones. If you're watching this video the day the video comes out, obviously these cars may no longer be available in the legendary dealership, but doubtless in the future these cars are going to come back in the legendary dealership. This should be a very informative video as far as helping you decide if you would like to purchase any sort of particular car. We're going to be starting off pretty huge today with the Porsche 917K, worth $18 million in the legendary car dealership. Now, this car honestly surprised me in many different ways. It wasn't exactly what I expected. We did get a taste of this car actually in the final license tests at Spa in the rain. There is a dry line, but there were puddles and it was extremely difficult to drive. Notoriously difficult, in fact. And I thought maybe because you're on racing hard tires and it's slightly wet outside that the car was just extremely difficult to drive. No, it wasn't because of that. The car is just extremely ridiculously difficult to drive, period. Is if you're getting this car for a very fast PP racer or a very try-hard-like driving experience, I feel like you're not going to love it. It's extremely hard to drive. Like I said, the weight distribution is 37-63, and the rear likes to come out all over the place. And you're kind of constantly fighting a wave of understeer and oversteer at the same time. I know you guys think you know where this is going, and I'm going to say this is totally not worth it. But there are a few things to keep in mind with this car. Number one, it looks absolutely amazing. It looks and sounds too. The sound of it is just beautiful, and it stimulates your senses when you're driving it. Really, a lot of these Le Mans cars from this generation are just amazing lookers. And this car does provide a unique driving experience that really not many others that I've driven in a Gran Turismo game do. In fact, I'll go as far as say that this is the most fun car that I've driven in GT7 so far. It isn't necessarily super tidy. It's hard to get really consistent laps with it, and it's not really all that fast for the performance points output that it has. But God, it's so fun to drive, and it will definitely make you a much better driver if you do get used to wheeling it around a lot of these tighter, especially more cornering intensive circuits. Now, to speak dynamically about the car, I did make a setup here for it to make it not only a little bit easier to drive, I think. I didn't really spend much time with the stock setup, so I don't remember exactly how easy it was to drive on that. But my setup definitely is faster and it feels a lot better and it's more of a unique experience to me, so I enjoy this setup. Just wanted to provide that to you guys, as well as I will be providing a setup for every one of these legendary cars in these videos. Now, to talk about the gripes with this car, it has extremely bad oversteer, especially when braking at high speeds. You really want to brake in a straight line with this car. I can't stress that enough, because if you don't, you literally just die. There are tracks with weird long braking zones at high speed where, you know, you can't take a typical racing line with this car. It just doesn't work unless you're gonna move the front ride height all the way up and make it understeer like an absolute boat. I don't really see a way to get this car to be fast but also drivable at the same time. I think you have to pick and choose your spots and pick and choose your tracks. Another thing to note is the front end of this car, the nose, I guess because of the lack of weight and the lack of significant downforce, likes to go up into the air over bumps and undulations. And not just the regular, you know, Maggiore straightaway or trial mount dip in the first sector. I'm talking everywhere. Like sometimes on Deep Forest it goes flying, on Dragon Trail Seaside it goes flying, Maggiore it goes flying, Kyoto Driving Park it goes flying. It goes flying everywhere in the front end at high speed. So when you do see a dip or a bump, especially when you're on your outlap, try to figure out how much you need to slow down for that dip or bump in order to keep the car with four wheels on the ground. This was honestly a major problem with the car, especially in a race where you get caught off guard by just this weird elevation. Sometimes only the front left will lift off the ground and the rear left will lift off the ground, and then you'll land and immediately spin out because the car is unbalanced on the landing. It's extremely difficult, so I recommend when you're going over bumps at high speed, you kind of want to dab the brake. High speed I consider anywhere, you know, above 140, 150 miles per hour. You kind of want to dab the brake or ease off the throttle at certain parts, and you'll kind of get a feel for it. But again, this thing is all over the goddamn place. Now, with the setup I provided, the traction in the low speed corners isn't too bad. And the one major strength of this car too, I guess because it's so small, is through the hairpins. It's unbelievably nimble, especially at Deep Forest. You really do notice this car like to pivot and rotate in the low speed corners. I think it's a good performer in the low speed corners in general. It's just the faster you go, the more the car needs to rely rely on downforce it doesn't have, and it's so goddamn light and the distribution is so messed up, but it's so fun. And I do think if you're an experienced driver who knows what they're doing, you can get the most out of the car, then it definitely is worth considering purchase. Now, before I get to my final conclusion on is it worth it, I also want to go through the tuning shop to just let you guys know what types of parts that you can equip to the car. This car in particular, you cannot add any kind of power or weight or flywheel or anything really. You can't really add anything to this car to make it faster or really slower for that matter. You can change around the ballast and mess with that. I personally don't like doing that because, in my opinion, if the racing drivers in the 70s were driving it with the 37-63 weight distribution, then I should be able to too. And I did come up with a setup without using that. Yeah, you could equip any tires you want. Obviously, the transmission and the differential you can purchase as well just to get a little bit more customization. But otherwise, that's pretty much all you can do to this car. You can slap a livery on it. Regardless, it's hard to really lower or raise the PP a lot on this car. You kind of have to run it in that 750 to 800 range if you want to get the most out of it. So yeah, that's about it for the tuning shop. Now for my conclusion on this car, is it worth it? If you're a function over form type of Gran Turismo player, then you're probably not spending a lot of time shopping in the legendary car dealership anyways. But if you're somewhere in between, maybe you want to do some PP racing with this, you want it to be semi-effective, you're not really emotionally attached to the car that much, but you kind of want to see what it's like, I would say it's probably not worth it. 18 million credits is an extreme amount of credits. Although at the time of recording this video, they did mention in April that they're going to increase the credit payout methods. 18 million credits is 18 million credits. It's a lot of money. And if you're a casual player just looking for something good and fast, this is definitely not worth it at all. Also, if you're kind of the type of dude who likes to customize cars a lot, there's not really much here for you to do, to be honest. And it is kind of just, you purchase it, you have it in your garage, you might drive it a few times. It's not really worth it. I think there's much better things you can do with 18 million credits, especially at the point in the game we're at right now. Overall, if you're on the fence about the car and you want to use it for just like performance points racing, I'd probably say, yeah, it's not worth it. Now, if you're like me, who loves old historic race cars, whether they be from the 70s, the 90s, even the early 2000s, and you do enjoy a very visceral, high octane, difficult driving experience, then this car is extremely rewarding to drive. Honestly, it's one of the most rewarding race cars I've ever driven in a video game, and that's saying a lot. I've driven a lot of cars in a lot of games, and I have so much fun with this car, man. I'm telling you, it's my favorite car in Gran Turismo 7 so far. And again, if you're someone who's a high-skilled driver who enjoys driving these sorts of cars, then I definitely recommend, and I do think that this is worth it. It kind of depends on your willingness to grind for credits, because it's going to be a grind to get 18 million credits to buy this thing. I do think for me personally, the driving experience is worth every single penny. Most people aren't going to think like that, and although I think it's not worth it for most people, I think there is a small subsection of users that will find this car worth it. I enjoy it very much myself, for the record. So yeah. So before I close out on this video, if you guys did enjoy the video or find this helpful, to leave a like, comment, and subscribe as well. I'm trying to get to 5K and just grow this channel as much as possible, because I really do enjoy making videos for you guys. Having an audience to spread my knowledge with is something that I've always dreamed of, so I really hope you guys could do that for me today. Other than that, guys, that's about it from me. I hope you all have a fantastic night. I'm out. Peace.